Good Monday afternoon to you. A special edition of Sports4CLE as the Browns get ready to play Monday Night Football in Cincinnati against the Bengals down at First Energy Stadium. We join you a little bit earlier than normal. Some question marks about who might be available for Kevin Stefanski and the Browns tonight. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah hasn't practiced all week. Greg Newsome, Greedy Williams, questionable. Ward is out because he's still in the concussion protocol. Not a team you want to be light in the defensive backfield with. The other thing to keep in mind, the weather. 25% chance of rain, with it increasing the later it gets, and you see in the 60s. So not bad weather-wise, but rain could be a factor. Let's welcome in Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. Mary Kay, appreciate you joining us early on this game day. This is not a team you want to face with a beat-up defensive secondary, huh?
No, you really don't. I mean, it helps a lot that Jamar Chase won't be out there when, of course, you don't have your #1 lockdown corner in Denzel Ward. So that helps a little bit. But still, they have a really nice trio of offensive players in Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, and Hayden Hurst. They're tight ends still. So you've really got to be on point from a secondary standpoint, even with Jamar Chase. As you mentioned, I do think that Greg Newsome and Greedy Williams probably will play this game. Not 100% certain, but at least those guys returned to practice on Saturday, unlike JOK.
How big of a piece is that without Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah? That's speed, and you always want speed with the guys that can run all over the place with the Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, as you saw in the previous game against the Ravens, he came up with that clutch takeaway at the end of the game, which is exactly what you need more of from this defense. And he's got the speed, the athleticism to be able to do those kinds of things. So, yes, it would really hurt not to have JOK, especially against an explosive, high-powered offense such as this one.
So the Browns are currently on a 4-game losing streak, the longest under Kevin Stefanski's coaching tenure. Browns, like their fans, seem to be searching for the corrections that will change the result. Amari Cooper talked about that earlier this week.
We understand that we have the players to do it. Yeah, we have cleaned up some stuff. But really, it just comes down to going out there and doing it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, we're making changes, but every team is making changes, you know what I mean? We just got to go out there and do it. That's all I can really say. Like, at the end of the day, it comes down to game day, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, we make the changes during the week. We try to be as prepared as possible, but you got to take all those things to Sunday.
And Mary Kay, it's never... very rarely is it the same thing, and I think that's kind of what has the players kind of scratching their head, just like fans.
Yeah, and, you know, Amari's right about that. You do have to take it to Sunday, and he did some pretty good things in that Ravens game. He caught one 55-yard pass. That was great. He also caught the touchdown at the end, but admits that he should not have pushed off beforehand, which took the touchdown off the board. He owned that. I think that's really good about Amari, that he does that. He owns if he makes a mistake, and that sets the tone for other guys to do the same. But so I thought some other guys stepped up in that game. As we already talked about, JOK came through in the clutch. I thought Myles Garrett, had another good game, even though he's not 100% by any stretch of the imagination. Jacoby Brissett, except for turning the ball over again, which he cannot do. You've got to protect that football. Aside from that, he had a really nice game. So I think it's coming together for some guys, but hopefully for all of them, it won't be too late.
All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave, great show as always. Frank from Cleveland. Hey, Dave, just one thing, before they go and trade Kareem Hunt, they never gave it a chance for him and Chubb to be on the field. They're saving fresh legs. Someone's not going to be making contact, so they're going to have fresh legs, even if they have them both in the backfield at the same time. He don't know how to run an offense. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't want him fired, but he needs to turn the play calling over to Van Pelt. Bottom line. Thank you, Dave, for taking my call. Appreciate your show. Be good, brother.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Mary Kay, I think he does a nice job calling plays. You know how that goes. Everybody wants to hop on the play calling thing. With Njoku out, do you think we might see more of Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb in the backfield together, like a significant amount of it?
You know, it's hard to say, even though I think that they should do that more often. They just, for whatever reason, really haven't embraced that, even though it worked pretty well in the first game. So, I don't know if we'll see more of that or not, but I do think they should get the ball into the hands of Kareem Hunt more. I think he can do more in the passing game than he's done. And especially with these young receivers still coming up the learning curve, you need somebody that, that has been there, that can be reliable for you, on third down or in whatever other situation you need him to catch the ball for you. So I would like to see more of that. But that sort of remains to be seen. I think it hurts a lot to have David Njoku missing this game. He's had a really, really nice season. He's coming off of a game in which he caught all 7 targets for 71 yards. He was really, really heating up and sort of living up to that potential that I've long thought that he had. And so they're going to have to make up for that somehow.
Yeah, without question. And I think an underappreciated part of his game, especially this year, has been the way he's blocking. I mean, he has been the dual threat guy that you want. Effective blocking in the run game, effective catching passes. And I'm not sure where they go to get that extra blocker.
Yeah, they're going to call up, 1 or 2 tight ends from the practice squad. They'll have to have Miller Forrestall out there. And they're just going to have to do whatever they can. They're going to have to pull together. But as you mentioned, Kareem Hunt can block. You do lose a whole lot of run blocking when you take David Njoku out of the lineup. I mean, you can use Michael Dunn for some of that, an offensive lineman who serves as sort of a jumbo tight end in some situations. So there are a lot of things that you can do, but they're certainly going to have to try to make up for their second leading receiver being gone.
Without question. All right, when you flip sides of the ball, Joe Mixon can be difficult for defenses. Browns seem to have gotten things rolling a little bit defensively against the Ravens last week. Zach Taylor talked about what he has seen from this Browns run defense.
They're still good against the run. They're violent at the point of attack. They do a good job pursuing on the backside. So they can impact your run game as well. And of course, it's what gets all the attention is all the pressure production and sack production, and that's what really stands out. But it doesn't diminish the fact that they're really good rundown players as well. We've always seen that from '95 and just playing Clowney over the years with many different teams. That's always been an issue with him. It's his frame is difficult. He's got great athleticism and can make a lot of plays in the run and pass.
And Mary Kay, the athleticism of the defense hasn't necessarily been the issue. It's been assignments, being where you're supposed to be at the right time.
Yeah, but I think the lights are coming on. I think some guys are starting to play better, and I think that they're understanding their run fits a little bit more. Now Deion Jones has been around for a little bit, and I think he will fit into the defensive scheme a lot better. Of course, now they are without Jacob Phillips for the entire season. That doesn't help matters when they have had already some issues there at middle linebacker. But the secondary, I think there's a lot of upside potential yet for the secondary, and I started to see a little bit of that come through. This is going to be a big test for them tonight, of course. But I think the defense is going to play better in the second half of the season.
So Myles Garrett talked about if the Browns defense did in fact find some things against the Ravens last week when they played better that can translate moving forward.
We found something against them. I think we have them on defense at least pretty well known and how to prevent them from doing what they want to, keeping them pretty manageable on the scoreboard. And we like to keep the yardage down with them, but I think we played them very well. I think every team is different. It's kind of like boxing. Styles make fights, and Bengals have a good style, and it'll definitely be a test for us on the back end and be able to get pressure on him, make him uncomfortable. But we have to take the momentum, at least defensively, back home with us and make sure that we keep on flustering this guy and make sure that he's not comfortable in the pocket.
And Mary Kate, to Miles' point, the Browns actually have matched up pretty well with the Bengals when Joe Burrow has been the quarterback. Of course, as we mentioned, no Denzel Ward will hurt. Your other corners are a little banged up. That's all. Those are all things that are concerning.
Yeah, it's all a concern for sure. But as you mentioned, Joe Burrow is 0-3 against the Cleveland Browns. Myles Garrett, when we talked to him the other day, said they need to get him uncomfortable. They need to put him in the dirt. And I'll tell you what, if they can do that, if they can get him off of his mark and disrupt him and make him uncomfortable, they can win this football game. I think it's the key to the game. He's not going to have his number one guy out there. So his deep ball guy, his outlet pass, the guy that he looks for, number one, when he needs somebody to come up big and make that play for him, is not going to be there. So, so I think there might be just that split second of hesitation for him at times where they can make some hay. And he's taking sacks this year. He's sacked more than 3 times per game. He's already been sacked 24 times this season. And I do think there will be opportunities. I think the Browns defensive line matches up well against an overhauled Bengals offensive line.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll turn more of our attention to this Browns-Bengals matchup coming up tonight, First Energy Stadium on Monday Night Football. Sports4CLE will be right back.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, as the Browns get ready to kick it off Monday Night Football, 8 o'clock tonight down at First Energy Stadium. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, just a quick comment. After the last, year and a half turmoil that the Browns have been through with the whole Baker problems and then Deshaun's lawsuits and then Jacoby being the backup and then defense being horrible and everybody wanting to fire everybody, we are finally going to see our team in a couple of weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, that, we've been waiting to see. We're going to get to see Deshaun soon. Finally going to see what our offense can look like. And this is going to say a lot about our coaching staff. I'm excited. It's been a rough season so far. We should be better than that, but we are what our record is. So there's a bright future coming. We're finally going to see the team that we've been wanting to see, the quarterback we've been wanting to see, and hopefully we can get this train rolling. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Mary Kay, I agree with most of what the caller said. The challenge is trying to get there and make the games mean a lot is what the next few weeks are all about for the Browns.
They need to get on a roll. I mean, they absolutely need to get on a roll, and it starts with this game tonight against the Bengals. If they can win this game, they are sending the Bengals home 0-3 in the division and with a 4-4 record. And that's not a horrible place to start if you're trying to claw your way back into contention. If the Browns move to 3-4 tonight or 3-5 tonight, that makes a huge difference going into the bye week. It cannot be overstated how important it is for them to win this game. If they move down to 2-6, it is really almost like stick a fork in them. It would be virtually I would say almost impossible to get back into contention. So it's a huge, huge game. I mean, look, the Bucs coming up, they're really struggling. I think they're very beatable. So if you can even hand 4 victories over to Deshaun Watson by the time he comes back, I think they can at least stay in the conversation for a wild card spot.
Yeah, and again, you know, the Dolphins look okay. They look good, but they're beatable. The only one that really looks like you expected them to look are the Bills, who look really good. Myles Garrett talked about the Bengals offense and getting to Joe Burrow, which we've talked about as being a key.
I mean, he gets it out pretty quick, and he's slipperier than you'd give him credit for. I mean, he's no Lamar, but when the man is able to find escape lanes where you don't think there are any. And, just how the offense works, RPOs, quicks, and then that threat of that long ball. So it just keeps you really on your toes, not really knowing exactly the best rush for the moment, just kind of having to go with your gut feeling. So, I mean, they've had trouble keeping them up in general, but the man himself is talented as they come. As far as each situation on the field, each down and distance, you're preparing a rush in your head based off of how long you think he's going to hold the ball. And sometimes they switch up their tendencies, but I mean, just the Bengals and Burrow, just like any other team, have their tendencies of how long they want to hold the ball, what kind of dropbacks they want to have.
Mary Kay, earlier in the week we did something where when he gets rid of the ball in 0 to 2 seconds, he has a significantly higher quarterback ranking than 2 to 4 seconds, which isn't a surprise, but it shows you when he gets the ball out, that offense is awfully tough to stop.
Well, that is true. But once again, it will be a little bit more difficult to get the ball off that quickly when you don't have your Pro Bowl receiver out there. It makes a difference. He also has 6 touchdown catches this season, Jamar Chase does. So you're taking a lot of points off the board when he is not there. I'm sure they will adjust, and I'm sure they are ready to come out and try to do whatever they can with Higgins, with Boyd, with Hurst, with other receivers that they have on this football team. But you can't replace a Jamar Chase. It's just not that easy. I mean, it's even, it's a little different than even taking Amari Cooper off of the field for the Browns, because Jamar has just been so incredibly hot this entire season. So yeah, they're going to have to do whatever they can to get him off his mark, to get him uncomfortable. Again, I just really think that you cannot overstate enough how that is the key to the game.
What are some of the other things you're keeping an eye on? You've already mentioned, pressure and moving Burrow off his mark. What are a couple other things that you're keeping your eye on as this game unfolds?
Well, it might rain. And if it rains, then I think you really need to rely heavily on the running game. They should do that anyways. But, lots of Nick Chubb is something that you would want to see at First Energy Stadium. Just as much Nick Chubb as you can in terms of, hopefully for the Browns, they won't fall behind and have to just go to a bunch of pass. You want to keep Nick and Kareem viable throughout this whole entire game. Now, they are also going to be without Wyatt Teller. That hurts too. So you've got a couple of your best blockers out in Wyatt Teller and David Njoku. That's not going to help matters, but Nick, I know Nick is dialed in and ready for this game. He's posting things on Instagram, and you always know that he's ready to roll when he's putting it out there like that. So that's a huge thing for tonight.
All right, let's take a look. This is from Pro Football Focus, team metric comparison. And you look at it, the defense of the Browns still ranked pretty high. The offense for the Bengals is number 1 according to that. Strength of schedule is kind of what knocks the Browns down. You see the offensive snaps are pretty even. The Bengals like to throw the ball. 2/3 of their offensive plays have been throwing the football. The Browns are closer. It's that 43 to 56% mark there, run to pass. All right, Mary Kay, let's get your predictions for this one. How do you think it plays out, and what are you seeing?
Well, I'm actually counting on the defense to come up big tonight. Miles is talking big about, once again, putting Joe Burrow in the dirt and he says, I like our chances. When he's talking like that, you know he's going to come up with a big game and that he feels really good about some of the matchups. I think you can expect him to move around a little bit and try to find some favorable matchups. So I think the defense is actually going to come through. And the minute Jamar Chase was ruled out of this game, I said, I'm picking the Browns to win. I think they can do it in front of those home fans, which really deserve a victory at First Energy Stadium. I've got Browns 29-27.
All right, before I let you go, how important is that turnover battle? We talk about it every time that you're on. They're due. A lot of it is fortune, and the Browns are due to have a couple of turnovers.
Well, they had 3 takeaways when they beat the Bengals 41-16 last year. So they need to do something like that again. They need to grab a couple of interceptions off Joe Burrow. Again, if those guys get him off of his mark, that will make a huge difference. The Browns are 0-5 when they don't win the turnover battle this season.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it, Mary Kay.
Thanks for having me.
Mary Kay Cabot, make sure you check out, she will have game analysis. You can also catch them on cleveland.com's YouTube page as they will wrap up the Monday Night Football game. All kinds of analysis and reaction. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out on the side of the break. We are joined by Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram. You can catch him on brownzone.com. We're talking more Browns-Bengals Monday night game coming up in just a few hours here on Sports4CLE. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns, getting ready for Monday Night Football against the Bengals down at First Energy Stadium. David Njoku unable to go. That means Harrison Bryant's role will expand. Bryant talked about his role.
I think I've done a pretty good job. Obviously, in every game there's plays that you want to make or that you don't make. So this week my goal is to go out and whatever opportunities I get to make the most of them. My goal every week is to be prepared to have an expanded role. Because in the terms of a game, you never know who's going to go down, what could transpire. So every week I'm preparing to have to play every snap. And whatever I'm asked to do, I'm just going out there doing the best of my ability and doing whatever I can to help the team win.
Harrison Bryant, who will be playing tight end 1 for the Browns. Let's welcome in Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram, as well as brownzone.com. You can check him out on the internet. So, Scott, obviously Njoku not going to be able to go. We know Jamar Chase not going to be able to go. How do the teams adjust, or do they adjust their offense without Jamar Chase and David Njoku?
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how that plays out, Dave, especially if you go with the Bengals. They run so much 3 wides. Like, they're almost exclusively in 3 wides. But without Chase, you still got T. Higgins, you still have Tyler Boyd, but there's no, extra receiver to step up into that 3rd spot. Stanley Morgan, one of their guys, will be inactive tonight. He was ruled out. So, they have other receivers, so maybe they just try that. Or maybe they go more 2 tight ends, which – if you're the Browns, it would be an adjustment because I think you come out used to seeing or expecting 3 wides from the Bengals. And then from the Browns' perspective, if Pharaoh Brown can play and he was questionable coming off a concussion and a neck injury, then the Browns will probably be able to run a lot of their 2 tight end stuff because Pharaoh Brown's a really good blocker and Bryant's more of a receiver. and then you could throw, if you call up Miller Forrestall from the practice squad, or you go guard Michael Dunn as your third tight end, you can make it work. But without Njoku, he's such a threat in both the run and the pass game that it seems like a week where you could go with more three wides, or even, I think more preferably is more Chubb and Hunt together in the backfield to compensate for not having your number one tight end.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with it. This might be a situation where that's the best option. You get two of your better playmakers. Does it seem like, the touches for Kareem Hunt have been few and far between? Does it seem like they've kind of gotten away from him some to you? It seems that way to me.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I think if you look at the whole season, I think he's still got 66 carries and like 16 catches or something. So it's, the yardage, it's like 50 yards a game, which isn't bad. But the last 2 weeks, it hasn't been there. And it's like 9 carries for 16 yards or something. And I think 1 catch over the last 2 weeks, which is really uncharacteristic, right? You're used to seeing Kareem Hunt catch the ball. So I think they need to get back to that. I don't think there was any design to get away from him. I think that's just kind of how it worked. And then if you looked at the Baltimore game, the series he was up to get to be the number one back is Patrick Queen, the linebacker, shot through twice and gave him 2 big losses in the run game. And that really kind of messed up what the Browns were trying to do offensively. Then they went into a big lull. So, I expect Kareem Hunt to have a much bigger role tonight than he has the last 2 weeks.
Well, the defense played well against the Ravens. Still a loss, but Joe Woods talked about the challenge that the Bengals offense presents them.
They have a lot of playmakers that are really good after the catch. The running back's playing well. He's running with power. They just have playmakers all over the place, and they're doing a nice job.
You guys didn't win last week, but it appeared the defense played well. Do you think you guys played well, and is there stuff from that game you can carry forward?
Just execution. I think we had a tight menu. They're hard to deal with, Baltimore. There's just play after play. They have a big menu of plays. You don't know what you're going to get, so we try to keep our menu tight. It wasn't perfect, but I felt the guys had confidence in the plan, and they executed. We just fell short on a few third downs.
And Scott, they're going to need that defense to dictate a little bit, because if you let Joe Burrow sit back there, it's going to be a long Monday night.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. It's interesting because, early in the year, a lot of teams were playing, cover 2 and making the Bengals try to run on them. And then somehow that switched. The last couple of weeks, I don't know if it's defensive philosophy or just the Bengals found a way to attack it, but they're throwing the ball a ton the last couple of weeks. And then the other part of that is, Burrow, I went back and watched the last 2 games they played. He gets the ball out of his hands so fast. But then there's plays where he's trying to take a deep shot and he hangs onto it, which is why he's been sacked 24 times, which is second in the league heading into, week 8. So we talked to Myles Garrett about it. You have to pick your spots with him. And if it's like a 3rd and long situation where you think he's going to have to hang on to the ball, then you go get him. Then you try to go expose that offensive line. But maybe if it's 1st and 10, you just get your hands up and you get ready for him to make, a quick short throw, because you're not going to be able to sack him because he gets it out of his hand so fast.
Yeah, and that would tell you that first read is where he's going a lot, and it's open. To your point, take a look at this Pro Football Focus. Joe Burrow on 10-plus yard throws over the past 2 weeks. He's got 17 completions, first in the NFL. 410 yards, first in the NFL. 5 passing touchdowns, first in the NFL. And also a passer rating of just under 151. That's second in the NFL. I guess, all that says is Joe Burrow's playing really well.
Yeah, he is. And I think that shows that he likes to push it downfield a little bit. And there's another stat. I think it's 12 50-yard touchdowns since he came into the league in 2020, which is the most in the league by 4, which means he's, his arm's big enough. He's got some legitimate deep threats. And Greg Newsome, the cornerback, talked about that, is the key to stopping them is to eliminate those explosive plays. Because if you give up, 1 or 2 of them, it just changes the game. So it'll be interesting to see how aggressive the Browns are defensively, or do they play a big soft shell and, make Joe Mixon run it and make him complete stuff underneath, then hope you get a stop in the red zone. or do they play aggressive, go tight man, and then you're in danger of giving up a big play, but you don't have Jamar Chase, so maybe you think you can handle the two guys that they still have.
Yeah, one of those guys, T. Higgins, big body, and my guess is that's kind of a Martin Emerson type of deal, because you need somebody who can physically match up with him, and Emerson is as close as the Browns probably have.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Now, the issue there is if you think Higgins is the best receiver, left, do you like your rookie on him, or do you think, hey, Greg Newsome, Greg Newsome isn't as big as Martin Emerson, but he's got some size to him. Because teams are picking on Emerson, and he hasn't played poorly, but he's given up some catches, which you'd expect from a rookie. So it will be interesting to see how they handle that. Do they go, one guy the whole game follows him? Do they pick sides? What do they do with Boyd? Because he plays so much in the slot, but if they only go with two wides, then he'd have to line up outside. So I'm really interested in that kind of chess match aspect of tonight's game.
Yeah, Boyd is kind of, before they got Jamar Chase, he was a guy that was getting behind defenses as well. So he's a slot guy. He gets overshadowed a little bit, but he's a pretty good wide receiver.
He's really good. Like, they have three big-time guys. I didn't go through all 32 rosters, but, there's a chance that it's the best receiving group in the league. I know heading into this weekend, it was the only one with all three guys to have 400 yards receiving.
All right, Kevin Stefanski talked about the success the Bengals have had, especially as of late.
They're getting off to fast starts. I think, in the past game, they're getting a ton of yak from their receivers. The quarterback's making really good decisions defensively. They're playing sound ball. They're playing really good in the second half of football games. So they're playing really good, playing good football.
And Scott, yak, yards after catch, Browns have to tackle, especially Higgins is a guy he's a big guy and he can run.
There's no doubt. And I think the corners overall tackle pretty well, but all it takes is one big one missed and it turns into a 75-yard touchdown. And your safeties need to tackle. And I don't think Grant Delpit's been great at that this year. And you need help from him. You need John Johnson III to be on top of his game at the back end, just because you can't afford those underneath things to turn into big plays. Let alone the big plays turn into big plays, but you can't let the little plays turn into big plays either.
Yeah, and as of late, keep in mind, Browns have beaten Joe Burrow 3 times, so that they match up pretty well and have played pretty well for the most part against the Bengals last couple of years.
Yeah, they have. It's a weird stat to get my head around because he's so good and he's beaten so many teams. They had the one game, I think it was a Thursday night. He was a rookie. It's week 2. The Browns kind of won a close one, but they played well in 2020. Then it was a game where Baker played great, and Odell got hurt early, and Baker completed 21 straight passes or whatever it was, led the final drive, and DPJ made the touchdown catch. So Burrow's had a chance to win these games, and then the Browns played great against them last year in Cincinnati. It's the best game they played. Myles Garrett attributed it to pressuring Burrow and getting him off his spot and making him uncomfortable. And, if that's the recipe, then you need to do it again, right? I'm sure that's step number 1. And having Jadeveon Clowney back this week will help. He's expected to play. I expect his role to be bigger than it was in Baltimore a week ago. But, yeah, it just feels like you're not going to go undefeated against Joe Burrow. He's just too good. I guess the point is you just have to extend that as long as you possibly can.
Scott Petrick and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll turn our attention more to the game tonight against the Bengals. Sports for CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns as they get ready for the Monday night matchup down at First Energy Stadium against the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Yeah, Tony Ragazine from Pueblo with my wife, Lucy. She picks Cincinnati 27-21. I got to go with my wife. I want to keep her happy. All right. Have a good day. Browns. Woof, woof, woof.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, you can tell that is a man who has been married a long time. I expect it to be a close game. We'll get into it a little bit more. I think close and probably high 20s, 30s is what we're looking, maybe even 40s.
Yeah, I lean that way too, Dave. I was double or second guessing myself a little bit. Just, does the absence of Chase affect how the game's going to be from a scoring standpoint? Does it slow down because there's maybe more Joe Mixon runs? I wonder about that, but yeah, my initial thought, and I'm sticking with it, is we're going to see a game in the high 20s for sure.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look. Pete Prisco, CBS Sports, Week 8 picks. He has the Bengals defeating the Browns 33-28. He's of the Browns, they just have so many issues on defense. Not a good thing against Joe Burrow and the Bengals passing game, the way they are throwing it around. All those are true. I mean, again, the thing that has been a little frustrating is the defense has a lot of playmakers, and they haven't been able to turn the ball over very much.
No, and I think the communication breakdowns early in the season have, for the most part, been resolved lately. Right, we haven't seen those nearly as much. But you're right; it's hard to get past the lack of takeaways, especially with the defense that you think is talented. Right, and Myles Garrett, I think he's got one strip sack this year. He needs more, and he'll be the first one to tell you that. I think Jadeveon Clowney missing time has hurt from that aspect, but because he had one early in the season. And then the back end just hasn't been able to get those interceptions. And, some of it's luck, right? You need the ball to bounce your way, whether it's a fumble that, you recover versus the other team, or you get your hands on a ball. But it doesn't even feel like there's been that many opportunities where you go, oh, there was their chance. So, yeah, and maybe that's what changes it, right? Maybe that's what flips the season and gets the Browns some momentum, is they get a game where they get the turnovers. And we saw it last year in Cincinnati, right? There was such a huge factor when the Browns went there and handled the Bengals. But I feel like that's the easiest, maybe not easiest, but that's like the simplest way to identify is for this team to flip the script, is to get a bunch of takeaways, because that has such a profound impact on the outcome of games.
Well, obviously things haven't gone the way the Browns wanted to. If they're able to get this, head into the bye at 3-5, is that the type of thing that could potentially turn things around for them?
I think so. I think it certainly gives you hope, right? I mean, the vibe being 3-5 coming off a win versus being 2-6, losing 5 in a row, it's huge. Like, to me, the whole season, the feel for the rest of the season changes so much, win or loss tonight. It starts with the trade deadline on Tuesday. I think Andrew Berry would be more inclined to trade some guys if you're 2-6 as opposed to 3-5. I think you can stop having any discussion about the playoffs until you string some wins together, because you'll be 3 games out of the AFC North, and you probably have to go 8-1 to have a chance to get in the playoffs. So I think this is huge to keep them in the race. And I do think, just from talking to guys, every week and every day, they feel like there's still a chance. Like, there's still a confidence level. They talk about, hey, we need one to flip it. But they need to get that one. And if it doesn't happen tonight, I don't have a whole lot of confidence that it will happen.
Yeah, and again, if you get to 3-5, you can see a path to getting to 5-6, and you get Deshaun Watson back, and then that does, that's going to be their their big trade deadline acquisition. They're going to get a couple weeks after the trade deadline. It's going to be their quarterback, their franchise quarterback. Key matchups. What are some of the things you're watching for and some of the things we should be looking at getting ready to get things underway tonight?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the secondary versus their receivers, but I think if you see more Joe Mixon, right, the Bengals running back, what do the Browns do at linebacker? You know, Deion Jones, it's his first time. He's probably going to play every snap because Jacob Phillips is done for the year with that torn pec. He'll be in the middle. How do they handle it? You'll see a lot of Sione Takitaki. And then JOK was listed as questionable, didn't practice all week. And I think he was really a wait and see, right? Some guys you think, okay, they're questionable, they're going to play. Like, I think Greg Newsome will play. I think Greedy Williams will play. I'm not so sure about JOK. And that's huge because, you know, he's one of your playmakers. He's one of your guys that's out there a bunch. And if you don't have him, does that, you know, I know he's not always great in the run game, but, you know, how do you compensate? You know, it's a guy that's it's Tony Fields or, you know, a guy off the practice squad maybe. So I'm interested to see that matchup. And then, you know, Myles Garrett or actually, let's flip it. We talked about Garrett a little bit. Trey Hendrickson versus Jedrick Wills Jr. I mean, Hendrickson's a guy that his motor never stops. And he's, you know, a second, third effort sack guy. And that's not Will's strength. Will's kind of has a clock in his head. He blocks the guy for a while, and then you'll see him just kind of standing there. And I talked to him this week. He knows that he's got to play to the whistle and match the intensity of Hendrickson. And he struggled last week. Wills did against the Ravens. So he needs to bounce back if the Browns are going to have a chance to move the ball, because you can't have Jacoby Brissett getting sacked like he did in Baltimore.
You know, gut feeling. We talked about it earlier in the segment, the one before it. Do you think they put Chubb and Hunt on the field together significantly more?
I kind of do. Like, I started the week thinking it was going to be three wides, and then you start looking at the wide receivers and goes, well, you know, do you want more David Bell? Do you want more Anthony Schwartz? Do you want more Mike Woods the second? No, I'd rather see Chubb and Hunt. And you have the extra day, you know, with the Monday night game. They tried it early in the year. I feel like this is a game where you can go to that. And, you know, Jacoby Brissett talked about emptying your tank as a player, right? Giving every ounce of effort because you have the bye week coming up. I think from a coaching staff, it's kind of the same thing. Just empty the playbook, and why not get those two guys on the field together?
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. All right, gut feeling. Who do you think wins this one? What do you think it looks like?
Yeah, you know, when I went Bengals 27-24, and I made that earlier in the week, maybe Thursday, and I'm sticking with it. I've had doubts. Like, I think the Browns are going to play well. I think they have a chance to pull an upset. They're so desperate for a win, and oftentimes in this league, that's the deciding factor, right? Which team is more desperate? You're home, it's a Monday night, Halloween, all those factors. But I'm sticking with the Bengals, and I can rationalize that by saying they have Joe Burrow, and he's the better quarterback, and he probably makes a play to win the game in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I can't argue with that line of thinking without question. Scott Petrak, appreciate you joining us here as you get ready to cover it. Make sure you check out Scott Petrak. He will have game coverage, Elyria Chronicle, as well as brownzone.com. So check that out as you look for what went on in the analysis of the Browns-Bengals game. Scott, thanks so much. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, Scott Petrak, again, Elyria Chronicle, Telegram's beat reporter for the Browns. Check him out, brownzone.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Andrew Gillis gives us a little bit of the perspective from the Bengals side of things. He's the Bengals beat reporter for cleveland.com. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Education Program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery, Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
Browns and Bengals getting ready to kick things off on Monday Night Football in a few hours. We've talked a lot about the Browns' perspective of things. Let's turn our attention to the Bengals' perspective of things. Let's welcome in Andrew Gillis. He is the Bengals beat reporter here on cleveland.com. Andrew, appreciate the time. Let me ask you this. How does the Bengals' game plan change, do you think, given they're not going to have their talented wide receiver Jamar Chase?
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think you just kind of have to not do too much. You can't really change what you're doing because the last couple of weeks, their offense has been so good. They've scored 30 points plus in their last 2 games. So to me, you still have T. Higgins. You still have Tyler Boyd. You still have Joe Mixon and obviously Joe Burrow's throwing him the ball. So this is just a situation where I think I'm fascinated to see what it looks like. But I think you just can't change too much, and you just kind of have to let the guys play because, you drafted T. Higgins 33rd for a reason. You kept Tyler Boyd around for a reason. You paid Joe Mixon for a reason. So, now is the time where they're going to have to make their money.
Yeah, and remember, before Jamar Chase was drafted so high by the Bengals, Tyler Boyd was a pretty good wide receiver. So they're not exactly bare at that position. Bengals are 0-2 in the AFC North. Do they have a sense of urgency? If they don't find a way to win this, they're 0-3 in the division.
Yeah, I think you have to, and they've said all week, it's obviously a divisional game. It's very important. We treat all of our divisional games the same, but I don't know if that's necessarily true. They've won 4 out of their last 5. They've lost to the Ravens. They've lost to the Steelers already. And that week 1 loss to the Steelers is kind of looking worse as the season goes along. So, you don't want to start 0-3 in the division, especially when you look at how good the Ravens what the schedule looks like for the Ravens towards the end of the year. The Ravens are a pretty talented team. So you've got to keep pace with them. And I just think, the players have such a week-to-week mindset, but they know that if you beat the Browns are pretty much out of it. You got the Panthers next week, then a bye week. So, you could go 5-3, 6-3, headed into a bye week, and then you got the Steelers coming out of it. So, you can start to kind of map out how this season can go for the Bengals if they're able to win on Monday Night Football. But, obviously you got to take care of business first. And, it's certainly not lost on them that they've started 0-2 in the division.
What do you expect to see from the Bengals tonight? Browns have had some trouble stopping the run before last week against the Ravens. What do you expect to see the Bengals?
Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm fascinated to see what their offense looks like. I really, really think that it's going to be a unique look because, Jamar Chase has not missed a game in his NFL career. So I think one of the things that I really just, I think they're going to rely on heavily is kind of what they've done in these last 2 weeks, which is almost exclusively operate out of the spread. They've essentially become an air raid team, basically. When they played the Saints, they had 2 plays. It was a game-ending kneel down and a 3rd and 1 quarterback sneak that were under center. Everything else was in the shotgun. So they're going to try to spread the Browns out. I don't think that necessarily changes a whole heck of a lot without Jamar Chase in the mix because you still have T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, like I mentioned. So, maybe you get more 2 tight end sets like that. But, yeah, I think they're going to try to spread the Browns out and beat them because, like I said, you still have Joe Burrow and you can't shy away from that.
Well, and to that point, take a look. This is from the NFL on CBS, and it is best passer rating is on 3rd downs this season. Tua is up there. And then Allen, Burrow, and Mahomes. Anytime you're mentioned in between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes as a quarterback, you're doing some good things. So that kind of goes, and that's on 3rd down, your quarterback ranking, and that's going to be critical. The Browns defense has to find a way to get off the field.
Yeah, Joe Burrow has kind of talked about this. Defenses for weeks always say, 3rd down, money down, money down, money down. Well, it's kind of been the money down for the Bengals because, Joe Burrow, he said this recently on one of his other radio appearances. He was like, sacks are kind of subjective because a 3rd down sack is different than a 1st down sack and things like that. And one of the things that I think I've seen Joe Burrow do more over these last few weeks is when the situation calls for it, he's not afraid to get out of the pocket. He's not afraid to run around, kind of hang on, wait for a play to develop. And when you've got Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Hayden Hurst, when you've got those guys, they're going to get open. So, he's been killer on third down. Everybody knows Joe Burrow and that instinct that he has, kind of that killer mentality. And that's kind of been what has propelled the Bengals over these last couple of weeks, because they started off slow and the first handful of games that they played. Once they got that fixed, then they got to third down, and third down they've been really, really good.
So one of the keys is going to be the Browns' ability to get pressure on Joe Burrow. Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney. Bengals head coach Zach Taylor talked about those defensive ends, Garrett and Clowney, and the Browns' defense.
Yep, I mean they're two of the best. They're an outstanding tandem together. Cause a lot of issues. They just have so much talent on their defense overall. The speed is what jumps out to you first. You look at all those guys in the secondary, starting with them. Got a lot of respect for John Johnson and Delpit, two really good safeties. And then they've got a lot of corners that they've played. If you're talking about Denzel, Greedy, Newsome, Martin Emerson has played in there too. They do a really good job. They utilize their safeties. Ronnie Harrison comes in and plays in some different roles. And then I know they've dealt with some injuries at linebacker, but it's a fast group. It's a good group. It's now they got Deion Jones jumping in there with Taki and Jeremiah. So it's a really good group. That's fast. They make a lot of plays. And then you got the guys you're mentioning all the guys in front of them that, 95 and 90 cause as many problems as any defensive end duo out there. And you got to be aware of them at all times.
Now, Andrew, the thing is the Browns secondary is a little beat up. Ward is out, still in concussion protocol. Newsome and Williams will probably play. They're listed as questionable. This is not a team you want to be banged up in the secondary against, though.
No, absolutely not. And, kind of like you were talking about, it really is going to be on those guys up front to get pressure after Joe Burrow. But I think what the Bengals are going to do, they've run a lot of RPOs here in these last couple of weeks. And, what that does is it slows up pass rushers. It kind of puts linebackers on their heels for just a split second when you've got the receivers that they do, even absent Jamar Chase. I mean, just those quick hitting plays, that really has kind of been, one of the key factors here for the Bengals over these last few weeks. So, I think that you just got to get the ball out quick. I think they're going to throw a lot of different things at Garrett and Clowney. I think it's going to be, tight end chips, and they're going to throw different protections at him, or they maybe read them off of an RPO and they leave them unblocked. This is not, a team that you can go into and say, well, we're just going to have one-on-one. Jonah Williams will handle it, and then La'el Collins will handle it. No, this is a situation where you've got to have a bunch of different tricks up your sleeve, because if you do that, you mentioned that secondary is so banged up. I mean, if Joe Burrow has time, this is going to be a really, really long night for the Browns, I think.
Andrew Gillis, Bengals beat reporter for cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take one more time out on the side of the break. We continue talking Browns-Bengals. Get ready to kick it off on Monday Night Football in a few hours. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns-Bengals with Andrew Gillis, Bengals beat reporter for cleveland.com. Zach Taylor talked about Jacoby Brissett, the Browns quarterback.
That's what I see from him, is really strong in the pocket, so hard to bring down, does a good job extending when he needs to. Very smart, so he finds the matchups and goes at it. Really does a good job just operating their offense and can put them in a position to win. You look at all their losses, aside from the New England game, which was 3-3 with 3 minutes left in the half. Those games have all come down to the wire that could have easily gone either way. I mean, this is really, if you look at the scope of their games, could be a 6-1 team without any question, just the way that their games have finished at the very end. And so he's done a really good job putting them in a position to do that. Sometimes they've been unfortunate, just the way the last play of the game has played out. But I think that I've got a lot of respect for him, the job he does. It's obvious why they believe in him and have allowed him to do the things he does. 22-27 is very difficult to do in this league, especially against that defense they went against. And so, he can put this team in a position to win. He does a great job managing them.
And Andrew Gillis, if you're Zach Taylor or any coach going against Browns, I think if you have the option of, do we want the ball in Nick Chubb's hands late in the game or Jacoby Brissett's hands late in the game, I'm guessing you're going Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You want Jacoby Brissett to be the one to beat you. And if Jacoby Brissett's the one to beat you, you throw your hands up and say, hey, he beat us, good game. But something that I found that is really interesting over these last few weeks that the Bengals have done, if they win the toss, which they seem to do a lot, they take the ball. And with their offense as good as it's been, they've been scoring. So what that does is it puts the opposition in a hole before they have even taken the field. So, to me, this is a game where if the Bengals can jump out early and kind of force the game out of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt's hands, this is going to be a tough situation, because if it's 10-0, 13-0, even 20-17, 21-0, something like that, I just don't see the Browns coming back from that.
Yeah, they're definitely built to play from in front, not behind.
Right.
What are you watching for? Some matchups or some things. Maybe the way to put this: if this thing happens, you think it's really good for the Bengals, and conversely, what do they need to avoid to have happening as well?
Yeah, I think on it, I know it's a cliche, but I think it's the run game, because you look at Cleveland, and that is just a rush attack that you have to stop, right? That is what they are built on. Their offensive line, I know they're down Teller, but, their offensive line is still really talented. The Bengals defensive line is kind of banged up. And if you allow Nick Chubb to kind of, just eat off 5 yards of carry, that's not going to be a good sign for the Bengals defense. But one of the things I think for the Bengals offense is if you can run the ball successfully, I mean, like I said, with all the receiving talent you have, I just don't know how many teams are equipped to stop that. Because if you're running the ball effectively and Joe Mixon's, getting 5 yards of carry, something like that, that's a really, really tough task for a secondary to handle, because then you start to come up and all of a sudden you get T. Higgins in one-on-one matchups. And that's not a matchup that a lot of cornerbacks are going to win in this league.
You mentioned the RPO game that they've had. How big has that factored into them getting out to those leads?
Yeah, it's huge. I think in the first couple of weeks they were trying to figure out, who they are, and there was a lot of talk because opposing defenses would come out in these cover 2 looks. You just throw 2 safeties all the way back and basically just put a lid on the offense, and you force Joe Burrow to throw underneath. And Joe Burrow really didn't play well against that the first time he saw it. He threw 4 picks against the Steelers. He got sacked 7 times, and obviously that was not all on his offensive line. Joe Burrow was just looking for those plays. He was looking for the home run. The RPOs have kind of allowed them to start to hit singles now, and that is a disaster for defenses, because when the Bengals are ripping off 5, 6, 7 yards of play, and you don't know if it's a run or a pass, that's how they burn you. That's how they burn the Saints. That's how they burn the Falcons, and that, I think, is how they're going to try to burn the Browns.
All right, how do you think this one plays out? What do you think the result is, and how do you think it unfolds?
Yeah, I picked Bengals 27, Browns 23. I think that the Bengals are just going to have just too much. I think the Browns are going to fight because obviously I was listening earlier, like you said, they lose, they're kind of up against it, and that might be it, but the Bengals have a lot to play for too, because like I mentioned, if they win, they're 5-3, and you have the Panthers next week, then you have a bye week, then you have the Steelers. I mean, like I said, the players look at it week to week, but I think it's pretty easy to see what's coming if the Bengals can get a win tonight. So I think they win. I think that they're going to start fast, and I think that the Browns are just going to have to play from behind, and I'm not sure that they have the talent to do that.
Andrew Gillis, Bengals beat reporter here on cleveland.com. As always, appreciate the time and the insight. Great stuff, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, Andrew Gillis, make sure you check him out with the Bengals side of things on cleveland.com. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports4CLE. Back to our normal time tomorrow, 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4. We will be dissecting everything that happens in tonight's Monday night game between the Bengals and Browns. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports4CLE.